Welcome to the Coalition of Scrubs, and yes, that was all of our collective natural voices singing.
I'm the man, I got the plan. When it hits the fan, do all I can, do all I can.
Hey guys, Christian the Haver Cardman coming back at you with another D-Time discussion today on Prohibition. But before we get into that, be sure to click that like and subscribe button down below so you guys can stay updated on all of the future Coalition content soon to come. And while you're at it, check out all the links down in the description to all of the other creators that are a part of the Coalition. They're all wonderful people here making you guys some awesome video content, so be sure to go check them all out and show them all some love. They really deserve it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's card discussion. Once again, covering Prohibition. Now, this card is a very interesting one. We'll kind of break it down first and just seeing what it is and what it does, and then we'll kind of dig into the meat and potatoes of why are we even talking about this card. So, off the bat, Prohibition is a continuous spell card with the simple effect that says activate by declaring one card name. Cards with that name cannot be activated, and it excludes cards that are already on the field, including face-down cards. Wow, okay, so that's it for the video, guys. Thank you for joining me today. I'm just kidding. We actually have to talk about this card because it is a really good card. I'm not going to deny it. There is a lot of stuff I can do. You can call things like hand traps. You can call main cards to strategies. You know, you can call any card that could out your board to stop that from being a thing. There's a lot of reasons why Prohibition is good, but I kind of want to talk to you guys today about maybe some alternate options and maybe cards that could be better depending on your strategy, and just overall if this card is really even that worth running. So to start off with talking about this card, I'm going to talk about what it can be used in. So this card is actually really versatile in that it can be used in going first or going second combo decks. It can also be used in control decks really well, actually. It's probably where they're most favorable. But the combo decks is actually really interesting because you can call things like hand traps. So if your deck dies really hard to Ash Blossom, you can call that. If it dies to Droll, if you're really worried about Droll and Lockbird, or you already know that your opponent's playing it, you can call that. You can call things like Nibiru. Nibiru is probably the biggest one to call right now, although we do have other outs to it at the moment. Prohibition's a really good one because if you draw it, you can just play it right away the first thing in your turn and just call Nibiru and you're good to go. Because going first, your opponent's not going to have anything to be able to shut that card out, if we're being quite honest. So it could really just be used as an extra means to kind of protect your strategy. Once again, it's versatile and then it can call any hand trap. It's not like Called by the Grave, where it can only hit a few things like Ash Blossom, DD Crow, Effect Veiler. Prohibition just stops your opponent from activating that card outright, because you can even call it infinite impermanence with this. So this bypasses all the limitations that Called by the Grave has, but it does also come with a few restrictions of its own because you can't activate it during your opponent's turn, and you have to call one specific name, so you have to be sure that the name that you call is the right name to call. So it's really, you gotta know what you're playing against and how to use it when you actually activate the card. That's why it's better in control style decks, especially as a turn or a game 2 card, because once you side deck it in, you probably already know what strategy your opponent's playing, and then you can just call whatever card you want out of their strategy if you're going first, so that you know how to slow it down the best by just playing that one Prohibition, then maybe setting up some other negates to kind of control your opponent's board so that they can't do what they want to do. So let's go ahead and talk about some alternate options for each different deck, combo, or control for this card. So for combos, like I already mentioned, you can use other cards like Called by the Grave to stop your hand traps. You can use also Trap Tricks or Flesia for the same thing. If it can make a rank 4 engine, you can just pull out Trap Tricks or Flesia with the Gravedigger's Trap Hole and be able to negate any monster that you want that activates from the hand or graveyard. So once again, this counts things like Ash Blossoms, Effect Veilers, Nibirus. Does not stop infinite impermanence, sadly enough, but regardless, still a very handy card. Technically, Instant Fusion and Millennium Eyes Restrict can also stop this, but you only get one copy of Instant Fusion nowadays, so like, what's really the point? Like, you can throw it in there just so you have 4 copies of Called by the Grave, but that'd be like the only reason to run it if you don't use it for anything else. I mean, Instant Fusion's just not nearly as good as it used to be now that it's been put down to 1. Apollousa kinda can be a replacement for this, because if you can get it out by your 5th summon and you're just really trying to stop the Nibiru play, then yeah, sure, like you can stop the Nibiru by hitting the Apollousa, but it's still not really doing that much. It's not doing nearly as much as a Prohibition, I think, in this case. It's just an alternate option. Obviously not a very budget one, but it's definitely more consistent in just that you can bring it out just by using monsters. But once again, at the same time, you have to worry about hand traps up until that point, because it is a Link 4 monster, so that is hard enough on its own to get out. Under the same vein as Apollousa, Herald of the Arclight, and Borderlord Savage Dragon, which are much more reasonable cards, because it's much easier to get those out before your 5th summon, or before it's really imperative that you stop a hand trap before you actually get into like the important parts of your strategy. Especially right now with the Jet Synchron, Needle Fiber, Auroradon combos and all that, that just allows you to bring out both of these guys for free in any deck for just playing 3 copies of Tuning and 3 copies of Jet Synchron with the right extra deck monsters. So many decks can use this, like Eldritch, Dinosaurs, you know, all these different decks. So I hope it gets addressed next time around. But these 2 free Omni Negates actually make it really easy to stop stuff like that. You know, you can just use their negates whenever you need to, and it can stop whatever cards you really want. They become more versatile in that sense, more versatile than Prohibition, just because they can negate whatever comes their way. Whereas Prohibition, you have to call ahead of time, and you have to have like the big brain knowledge to be able to call the right card. So for control alternate options, you do have things like your Solemn Package, your Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike, and Solemn Warning. All really good cards, just basic general negates that actually stop a lot in terms of the current metagame right now. Yeah, I mean, once again, this is, you have to set way to turn pass, so it's not going to do as much, but that's why they're good for control decks, because control decks are already doing this kind of stuff anyways. That's just their general style of gameplay, which makes that totally easy and fun. Mystic Mine, which I don't really condone, this stops monster effects. If your opponent already has monsters in the field, this really works best as a going second option, or if you're like Jeff Leonard and you played the DD Guide with the Mystic Mine, then that works too. I mean, there's a few different cases in which Mystic Mine's okay, but once again, I don't condone this. It's just kind of a toxic card. Yeah, sure, it makes a lot of rogue strategies a lot more viable, because they can just slap this into any deck they want and then just stall out until they get whatever they want, or they can just stall out the opponent. If they don't have a response to it, then it can just end the game all on its own. But once again, I don't think it's a healthy format in which Mystic Mine is a good card. And seen as not toxic. It's always going to be a toxic card in my mind. Secret Village of the Spellcasters is another really interesting card. This kind of works best with set rotation, unless you're actually playing a deck that has Spellcasters, in which case it's just good playing it naturally. Just because it can stop your opponent from playing spell cards, which actually can do a lot to a lot of different strategies. Being able to shut out an entire type of the game from being able to play, like, that is just, it's powerful. But it's not always going to be the best. Prohibition sometimes calls a lot of things that are a lot better than just what Secret Village of the Spellcasters can stop. And just general hand traps are usually a better option than Prohibition. You can play things like your Ash Blossoms, Effect Veilers, Infinite Impermanence, Nibiru's. If you want to, you can main deck the Dark Ruler No More instead and just be able to break opponents' boards that way. Book of Moon's another really good card, just extra disruption. There are other disruptors that are Prohibition from being able to shut out those certain cards. Once again, if you're calling the key parts of a strategy, yeah, Prohibition's really good, especially if they rely on like that one card. Say like if you're playing a deck that relies on Needle Fiber, you just call that and they can't activate Needle Fiber. Yeah, that's a fat rip. But, I mean, there's not really all that many alternate options. That's probably about all the options I got for alternates on both these decks. So let's take a look at Prohibition itself and see if it's actually, like, a worthwhile card. So, it really, like, out of all these picks, it's not the best card, but it is a great addition to any deck that has the extra space for it. It's especially really good as a side deck option for games 2 and 3, because you can side it in knowing what your opponent's playing and knowing the key cards to pick out of it, especially what hand traps they're running, like what hand trap lineup they have or disruptions they have. You can call those if you're trying to protect your strategy. If you're playing a controlled deck, then you can just call whatever cards are really important to them and be able to shut those down right away. Like, I know if playing a Dino deck, if Ultimate Conductor Tyranno got called, I would be definitely a little bit sad. But that's all I got for you guys today. Overall, once again, this is a really good card. I definitely think you guys consider it as a side deck option. It's a semi-budget card because I've seen it go up to like 8 copies, but it's also been down to like $8 a copy, sorry, and down to like $3 a copy. So it really varies. There's like a certain rarity from a certain set that's up to like $30 right now, but you know, if you guys pick it up at the right time, it's definitely a card worth running in several decks, and I really think you guys should give it a shot. So, once again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all these different discussions. It's really cool to see what you guys think and be able to chat with you all the time. So, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We all love your support, and I hope to see you guys all in the next video. Remember to have fun and make your move. Peace out.
I'm a love giver, searching for